Hi. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you to everyone who reached out to me after my last video. Not entirely sure if that video got to the audience that I really wanted it to, but everybody who has reached out to me has mostly been encouraging, so thank you. Also, thank you to all of the cities across the country who have stood up in solidarity with Minneapolis and St. Paul at this moment. Thank you. I thank you. Minnesota thanks you. We'll stand with you when it happens to you as well. The big news, I guess, though, is ding dong, the witch is dead. Yes, the guy who was here occasionally LARPing as an SS officer is no longer in charge of ICE operations in Minneapolis. In his place, though, the administration has sent us Tom Bag of Cash Homan. We won. We got rid of the bad guy. He's defeated. It's the end of the movie. Roll the credits. No. See, this is a classic authoritarian tactic, you know. When you overreach a little bit and the public reacts horribly to what you've just done, well, you sacrifice a toady. That's what Bovino is. He's a toady who's been sacrificed. And then you send in a new one who will probably do the same things, except do them a little quieter. We had a little bit of a reprieve here for a couple days in Minneapolis, but today, Sunday, big raids again. Exactly like before, with ICE officers behaving exactly as they did before. And just to note, even though a bunch of Customs and Border Patrol officers left town with Bovino, we've seen reports of new ICE recruits coming into town. So the total number of the surge here is probably not any lower than it was before. And they have big plans to go after Springfield, Ohio next. If you don't know why, or if you don't remember, Springfield, Ohio was the place that they were trying to demonize by saying that Haitians were eating people's pets. A complete, flat-out, demonstrable lie. These are all people who were working in good standing and had been living under protected status until it was revoked. That protected status runs out in a few days, on February 4th. And on February 5th, the administration has said that they are going to start a surge in Springfield, exactly like what happened here in Minnesota, except they're just taking their fight to a smaller district. In the meantime, leading up to that, I just want to give you, in Springfield, Ohio, and wherever else these goons go, just kind of a rundown of things you need to look for as whatever this surge is comes to your town. First thing you want to look for are caravans of very large SUVs and trucks. They favor American makes, GM, Ford, Chevy. They've been spotted in Tahoes and Suburbans. They love Jeep Wagoneers, big F-Series Ford trucks, crew cab editions, and big Silverados just the same. A lot of them will have out-of-state plates. You might spot some of them driving around without plates. They have also been caught switching plates around, all in an effort to try to avoid observers. Some of them are cruising around in just regular vehicles, but be on the lookout for those very dark tinted windows and either out-of-state or no-state plates. They've also been attempting to do some little bit of disguising. Some of their vehicles have been stuck with like one single LGBTQ sticker. They've also had a few occasions where they have borrowed or rented vehicles from companies that are in your area. They've been seen driving around in a few like plumbing and electric trucks. You will notice them very instantly on the interstate and on the highways because they will drive very fast and very erratically. These guys that are coming in, they don't know your roads, they don't know your towns, they're going to be traveling by Google Maps or something like that, and they're going to be very nervous about staying together in those tight caravans. If anybody accidentally gets in between the people in these caravans, they will drive very aggressively to try to get you out of the way or get around you. They will most likely start moving slower in caravans down main drags. The pattern here has been that they tend to focus on areas that have a lot of minority-owned restaurants and stores. They will cruise up and down that looking for targets. Sometimes they will send individual vehicles out into more residential neighborhoods. You will probably notice them right away too because it will be the vehicle that nobody knows that is slowly making circles around blocks in your neighborhood. There's a bunch of different kinds of agents here. We tend to refer to most of them colloquially as just ICE, as just one big group. Important thing to note is that the agency ICE itself has never met any of the ambitious recruiting goals that they have set for it. They have been lowering and lowering and lowering their standards, and yet they still can't quite get enough of the guys that they want. These surges in metro areas have been bulked out with people who've been stolen from all sorts of different federal departments. But in general, for actual ICE guys, this is what you're looking for. You might have seen these guys in the news a lot, wearing civilian clothing with these very cheap, bulk-ordered tactical vests and all sorts of crap hanging off of them. The thing that I want to point out about the actual ICE officers is that a lot of them seem to be really out of shape. I mean, badly. A lot of them, like this guy, are obviously overweight. Sometimes it looks like they're actually been allowed to kit out their own gear, which is why you'll see a wide variety of random things hanging off their vests, a wide variety of add-ons and modifications to whatever weapons they're going to be carrying around. Basically, these are guys who learn most of what they are supposed to be doing from playing Call of Duty. And yes, they're going to buy the loot crates. The most obvious thing that you'll see with them is that a lot of them just seem to be standing around at any event, waiting for somebody to tell them what to do. It's very difficult whenever you see a situation unfolding to know who is in charge or if anyone is in charge. It's very obvious that these guys got no training, have no discipline, and have been told nothing about the actual law. And even though ICE has been continually lowering and lowering and lowering their standards, they still haven't been able to meet their requirements. So hence the reason why you have all of these guys here who very obviously couldn't pass the physical for a police department or the military. And many of them having, notably, failed open book tests that were given to them to get into the agency. They are most likely to be the most panicky in a situation, and they are also the ones that are most likely to just get in their cars and leave when you stand up to them and challenge them. There's also Customs and Border Patrol. Not all of them left with Bovino. There's still many of them here. These guys have more experience. They have actually been working an actual job with CBP, most of them for several years, at least. They are have more standard issue uniforms and flak jackets and the whole mess. You will recognize these guys pretty quickly because most of them seem to be kitted out like they are ready to go and invade Fallujah all over again. And they will have some knowledge of the law, but the particular area of the law that they're being asked to enforce right now is not actually their expertise. If you challenge them on anything having to do with the law, they will either not answer or they will respond with threats. CBP doesn't technically have jurisdiction outside of the 100-mile zone around any international border, and you'll notice that Minneapolis-St. Paul is not within that 100-mile zone. A lot of these federal agencies have loose work-sharing agreements that I'm pretty sure skirt the law, but regardless of what the law is supposed to be, here they are. You'll probably see them moving in sort of faux military formations. They love forming wedges and groups and just kind of proactively going into crowds in an attempt to rile them up. These are also the guys that you will see walking around carrying ARs. But they're not the only feds that are here. We've seen plenty of guys who are here from Bureau of Prisons. These are federal prison guards that have been pulled off duty and sent here. And you'll see guys that are here from, DEA, FBI, some bunch of other random federal organizations. A lot of these guys have been pulled off the duties that they actually want to do and were trained to do, and are not all that thrilled to be here. But I need to point out that a lot of the feds that are here are not wearing their standard equipment. They may not be identified at all which department they're from. Many of them are not wearing badges, and almost none of them will actually identify themselves when they attempt to do any kind of action. These other feds pulled from other departments, they're usually better experienced. They usually know a lot more about the actual law, but again, not applicable to this area. These guys have to operate out of somewhere. So what you're going to want to look for is some sort of large federal building in your area. You may not even realize that it actually was a federal building. A lot of federal buildings scattered across the country just look like bland office buildings. And the base that they set up here in the Twin Cities is no different. This is the Whipple building. It's become, sort of infamous in the newspapers around here. It was just an office building. There were a couple random agencies that had field offices here. It is not set up to be a detention center, a military center, or any kind of place with active police working out of it. And people who've been detained there can tell you that inside it is just absolute chaos. Everything there is ad hoc. Everything is thrown together. I reiterate, these guys do not know what they're doing. They may also select some sort of military installation that happens to be in your neighborhood. Pete Hegseth has already said that Department of Defense will cooperate with them. There is some talk here in Minneapolis that they might be moving from this Whipple building to a military base. It's called Fort Snelling. It's a very old military base here. Part of the advantage to that is that there won't be any public land that's readily available around a defense location for people to protest at. But if they do select a regular federal building that has close access to public land where people might protest, you will notice very quickly that they will start hardening the position and expanding their barriers out. Here's what Whipple looks like now. They're going to keep trying to physically push people back away from the property, even illegally keeping them off of public property that's next to the building. They will most likely start their day with their caravans coming out of this facility and end their day by all their caravans going into that facility. They will also set up regional staging grounds around the area when they come out in the mornings. Usually this will be parking lots in big shopping centers, Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards. These are all parking lots where they have staged. They will also take over parking areas in public parks, regardless of whether or not they have permission to be there. Several cities in the area have already told them that they are not allowed to use those areas, but they have continued doing it anyway. They will often just randomly select their targets by looking at them from the street. You can thank Brett Kavanaugh and the people in the Supreme Court who said that it's perfectly okay for the cops to do this as long as the stops are brief and as long as the people can show proof of citizenship. Brief stops have not been the case. They quite often will deny the people the ability to even show their proof of citizenship. And they will lie about who they're looking for. They will say that they have warrants when they don't. And they will do lots of shows of force. They will move on one person with way more people than you would ever expect to be needed to arrest one person. They'll be extremely aggressive in their movements. They will move right to tackling people, punching them, kicking them, even pistol whipping them. They are trying to purposely escalate the situation. They will quickly resort to what you probably have heard them call less lethal or less than lethal weapons. They will draw and point guns at people who they feel are not cooperating, and they will move from their less lethal weapons to their actual lethal weapons way quicker than you would expect. They will very quickly move to smashing in windows, cutting seatbelts, and dragging people across the broken glass out of their vehicles. They will just flat out refuse to look at documents that people say they have that say they are citizens. There have been multiple people who have been detained, said they had their passports on them, and to which the ICE officers replied, "We don't care." They've also detained a lot of actual citizens. Sometimes they're people that they merely suspected of not being citizens, but most of the cases have been people that they have just decided have been obstructing their activities. Some of them, like this poor woman, are just people who happen to be driving through the area where their operation was taking place. This woman was actually just going to her doctor, got stopped because the traffic was backed up due to ICE vehicles being parked haphazardly all over the road. ICE decided that she was obstructing them. They smashed her window in, dragged her off to the Whipple building for processing. These actions are done purely to intimidate people. Most of the time they can't prove a case and they don't even bother to charge them. A lot of people have had their property confiscated while they are in detention and not having it returned. They're especially fond of taking video cameras and cell phones because they are trying to limit the amount of footage that people can film of their actions. However, there are also several reports that people with passports have had their passports confiscated and not returned. There's also some reports that they have just been flat out stealing things like jewelry from people who go in. If you're going to go out and observe or protest, I would advise you to leave all of your valuables behind that you can. While you're in detention, you can also expect to be refused access to a lawyer. They've intentionally created chaos at the Whipple building in order to justify not allowing lawyers in. Many people who have been held at the Whipple building have also reported that interrogators have attempted to coerce them into admitting to things that they flat out were not doing. Mostly into admitting that they are part of some vast organized left-wing conspiracy. ICE has also been detaining naturalized citizens, people who are on here in protected status, who are not eligible for deportation, and then either threatening them or attempting to bribe them by promising them that they'll go easy on those people's relatives if they give up other people. ICE will lie to you. They will look you in the eye and they will lie to you. They don't know the law. They don't know the boundaries of what they can and can't do. And they will lie. So, if you are detained, don't say anything to them. Most likely they will shove you out the door in the morning. Now here in Minnesota, part of their little punishment ritual when they release people from the Whipple building is that they will push them out the front door without coat, hat, without their phone, maybe without their wallet, no way to get home. Thankfully, there have been local groups that have been coming together to meet people at the gate at Whipple in order to get them into a warm vehicle, give them a burner phone, give them a coat and hat, and find a way to get them home. One of the other tactics that they've been doing a lot of is boxing in vehicles, especially to people who are commuting, following them, observing them, or people that they just perceive are following them. They will block them in on either end with a car and approach them, threaten them, scan their faces, sometimes just smash their windows in. They have also been intentionally causing accidents in order to justify trying to charge the people in the vehicles with obstruction. A fairly new thing that's been happening in the past week or two is the rollout of all sorts of facial recognition systems and license plate readers. They initially said they weren't doing this. They denied that they were amassing a database of people that they had arrested or just thought were obstructing them. But after about a week of ICE agents openly taunting people, showing up at their houses after they'd had interactions with them, or leading them right back to their own houses if they're following them. And then Tom Homan just out and out saying they're building a database. We know that's exactly what they're doing. Most of these officers are taking the pictures with their own personal cameras. They are not using state-issued equipment or body cameras or anything like that, anything that might be actually subject to a FOIA request, which again, I'll remind you, is also patently illegal. But they are building a database of people that they have interacted with. They're trying to threaten people that it's a domestic terrorism database. They may try to smear you as being a, quote, domestic terrorist, but that's a political action, not a legal one. And just a message for the police officers out there. You need to know that ICE is not on your side either. I know that a lot of the cops out there are much more prone to be sympathetic to ICE and much more willing to try to work with them. But the dirty little secret is that they don't want to work with you. They think they're better than you. They will not give you heads up about where they're going or what they're doing. They will cut you out of investigations if they come up. They will lie to you and they will lie about you. This is the police chief of Brooklyn Park. It's a suburb of Minneapolis. And he's giving a press conference in this picture because a bunch of his officers, who happen to be people of color, had been harassed and detained by ICE while just walking down the street or driving in their vehicles. ICE had no reason to even suspect these people except for the color of their skin. Cops, you are on the list too. So let's talk weapons. I don't want to get too much into the guns. We all know guns are dangerous. We've already had 3 people shot by ICE, 2 of them murdered, just openly in the street. There's a lot of AR variants, a lot of different kinds of sidearms, some riot control shotguns. For the most part, though, all of the shootings that have been done here have been done with sidearms. Mostly the ARs are just being used for intimidation right now. This is going to sound ridiculous, but the most common weapon that they've been deploying are paintball guns. Yes, paintball guns. Now, that might sound crazy to you, but if you've ever been at a paintball range, you know that getting hit in the face with a paintball hurts like hell. And also, a lot of the rounds that they're using are not just paint, but actually some of them have basically pepper spray mixed in with the paint. Now, this brings me I'm going to take a tangent yet and just talk about this. This term less lethal or less than lethal. It's a variety of weapons that cops like to tout as being the safe alternative to guns. They used to call these non-lethal until a whole bunch of lawsuits over wrongful death happened, and then the manufacturers started pitching them as this term they made up called less lethal or less than lethal. Every single one of these that I'm describing that has been labeled as less than lethal has killed a person. And even if it doesn't kill them, can seriously injure a person. Especially since very rarely are they actually using the weapons in the safe manner that is prescribed by the manufacturers. Pepper spray, mace, bear spray, canned chemical irritants. They've been using them a lot. Not so much for crowd control, but more for punishment, retribution. As you can probably see here in this picture, this is somebody who is already held down and restrained, and the cop is firing the chemical irritant directly into his face from only a few inches away. If you read the instruction manual that comes with any of these things, it very clearly says this is not their intended purpose. They've been doing this a lot. And if you get hit with these, please go flush your eyes and your nose and your mouth as soon as possible. The longer it sits on your skin, the worse it will feel and the worse it will get. But now I want to talk about gas. A lot of the pictures you might have seen coming out of Minneapolis always seem to have clouds of fog or smoke around them. And that's because ICE has been liberally using all kinds of gas. A lot of these are gas grenades. Some of them are launched from launchers, but most of them are the standard kind where you pull a pin and throw it like a grenade. Some of them are tinted smoke grenades. You might have seen pictures where there is red or green smoke. Some of these are colored, however, with heavy metals and perchlorates, supposedly in small amounts that wouldn't affect a person. However, they have been throwing so many gas canisters out that I wouldn't be surprised if people have had terrible reactions to them, and maybe even some long-term pollution damage to our city from how much of this stuff they have been spraying everywhere. There's also what you commonly call tear gas, CS gas. We've seen a lot of that. They seem to be very indiscriminate about whether they're throwing smoke bombs or CS or pepper bombs or anything like that. It seems more what they want is just the cloud. CS gas, tear gas, is full of a lot of nasty chemicals, carcinogens. It's bad stuff. You do not want to breathe it in. There is a newer version of CS, that's the more common one that's used now, that's supposedly less bad. I don't want to say it's good or healthy. It is not. However, they have been throwing out so many of these canisters at people that I feel that they are probably reaching deep into their stock. And you can't just run down to Walmart and get a box of tear gas. So we've seen a lot of the old style ones being thrown out too. There's also, like I said, the clouds of the green gas, the red gas, all kinds of stuff. But the thing I want to point out about all of these canisters, aside from the health effects of them, is that the way they function, the CS canisters can heat up to 300 degrees when they first get ignited. These are fire hazards. If you see them being thrown and landing in buildings or in cars or in garbage cans or in any random paper that happens to be around, it can ignite them. The ICE agents have, just as a matter of course, started dropping canisters out of their windows as they take off from a site. They seem to be doing it in an attempt to mask their getaway, as if they're in some kind of video game, because that's just who these people are. Flashbangs have also been deployed a lot. The intention of a flashbang is to cause a very loud sound and a very bright light that will blind, deafen, and disorient people. However, flashbangs are basically just small grenades. They're in metal canisters. They are explosive. They can create shrapnel that can penetrate skin and cause serious damage, especially if the flashbangs are thrown directly at people, which, again, standard practice says you're not supposed to. They have, on occasion, thrown them into vehicles that are occupied. One time they threw it into a car that had children in it. Flashbangs are very dangerous up close. They are explosives. This last one, this is a relatively new one, and I know that I said that people have been killed by all these other weapons, but LRAD, that's what this is, and I'll get into that in a second, it's a little newer, so it hasn't actually killed anybody yet, but we also don't know a lot about its effects on people. LRAD is long-range acoustic devices. They're treating sound the way that light is treated in a laser. It is focused and made coherent into a beam. Very high energy sound. At its higher levels, an LRAD can actually shred your eardrums. At its lower settings, it can induce nausea, blurred vision, can give you a migraine headache that lasts for days. There is some evidence that at certain settings can actually cause your brain itself to vibrate and maybe give you some sort of concussion effects. We have no idea what it does to internal organs, what its long-term effects are. Fortunately, it's not being used that often yet, but we do have at least 2 occasions where it has been deployed here in the cities. You might think that putting earplugs in will save you. It can help you. It could keep your eardrums from getting shredded, but the only thing you can really do is get out of the way of LRAD. be on the lookout for this one, because I think they might be starting to use it more and more. They do like their toys, and since there's so little research into how damaging it can be, and since it doesn't have explosions, since it doesn't have a projectile, I have the feeling that they're going to deploy it saying that, like, oh, it's even less lethal. This is the nice weapon. So, I know that's a lot of scary stuff. I know it sounds like this invading army coming in that has all the weapons and all the power. They are an invading army. They are coming in. They do have all the weapons. But they don't have all of the power. And I want you to remember that. The citizens of this nation have the power, not these goons. And if you stand up to them, you can win. I want to go through some of the tactics that people in Minnesota have been employing that have actually been working very, very well. What we've been doing here seems to be very successful, at least in demoralizing this invading force and getting the public on our side. You may have heard, if you've been paying attention, about the people that are following the cops around. Following ICE around. They're calling themselves commuters. Before you start trying to do this, first of all, you should get training. This is a delicate situation. It is legal to follow a federal officer around. It is legal to film what they're doing. It is legal to report their location. However, it's not legal to obstruct them from doing their job. And this is a very fine line, because ICE is going to get very annoyed at people following them around, and they're going to find any excuse they can to say that these people are obstructing them. Commuters tend to work in pairs. That is, there tends to be two people in a vehicle, so that one can drive and one can navigate, and when they are in a situation, that one of them can call it in to an alert line and the other can film. They also tend to work in groups that coordinate with each other as there's multiple vehicles going out, because ICE will actively try to lose them, will try to box them in, will try to threaten them, will try to disable their vehicles so they can't continue doing their work. I don't recommend just going out tomorrow and trying this out for yourself. There is something you can do pretty easily yourself. And again, if there is training in your area, you should get training in this too. You've probably seen in every bit of footage coming out of Minneapolis, all of these people standing around filming with their cameras. These are the observers. They are not protesters. This is not a designated protest. This is not an organized group of people. What has been happening is that when ICE enters a neighborhood, the people who actually live in that neighborhood come out of their houses with their cameras, come out of their places of work with their cameras, and film. The intention here is to make sure that you film everything and you let the ICE officers know that they are being watched. They will try to stop you from filming. When there are enough ICE officers on the scene, they will go around and try to bodily block people from filming the actual action that's happening. They will go up and threaten people and say that they are impeding their investigation. They will threaten to arrest people. In some cases, they will arrest people. What they're really after is taking that camera footage away. And then, of course, there's protesting. This is classic American stuff. We know how protests work. We had a protest in downtown Minneapolis that had 50,000 people come. Protesting has a long legacy in the United States. It is entirely legal. Our protesters have been insanely peaceful. Peaceful protesting like this, peaceful observing, peaceful commuting, these have been the most effective things. And I want to show you, I've got one. I've always got one on me. This is the most effective weapon in the arsenal here. Simple, 3D printed whistles. There's protocols for how you should whistle. You don't have to do it exactly the way we're doing here in Minneapolis, but it helps if there's an established signal that everybody in your city recognizes. It alerts everybody in the neighborhood that ICE is there and doing something. We are all on alert for whistles all the time. This is like 5 cents of 3D printed plastic that a friend of mine just gave me. I have several of these. Everybody has these. Can't give us all the credit for it. This idea was first rolled out in Chicago last year, but Minneapolis has adopted it like crazy. It's amazing how this thing has become the greatest weapon in our arsenal. I know it sounds stupid. I know it sounds insane, but this has been our lifeline. What you need to do, as well as all that, is get yourself familiar with some areas of law. Most important, knowing the difference between an actual judicial warrant and the things that Department of Homeland Security have been issuing, which are called administrative warrants. They're not all going to look like these examples that I have up here. There's all sorts of different kinds depending on your jurisdiction. A judicial warrant is going to be signed by a judge. It's going to say the court that it came from, and it's going to have specific orders for a specific person at a specific address. Administrative warrants are things that ICE and DHS are just making up on their own. An administrative warrant does not give them the right or the ability to break into a residential home, to go into the private areas of restaurants or other places of business, or to otherwise go onto any private property. ICE, of course, has been lying and saying that these administrative warrants give them access to anywhere. They have tried many times to go into the back rooms of businesses. They have gone into schools. They've gassed students while they're at the schools. They've gone into hospitals. Just the other day, they tried to go into the Ecuadorian consulate here in Minneapolis, which not only is patently illegal, but is protected by international treaties. They will try to bully and intimidate their way into place by saying they have a warrant, and then they'll show you one of these photocopied administrative warrants. If they show up at your house, tell them they need to get a judicial warrant. 9 times out of 10, they will back down. Business owners, I want you to know something. You are well within your rights to not serve ICE officers. You don't have to seat them at your restaurant. You don't have to serve them at your bar. You don't have to host them in your hotel. You don't even have to allow them into your business. In fact, lots of businesses around here are now starting to have these signs in their windows explicitly saying right up front that ICE is not welcome in their business and that they need to have a warrant if they're going to come in, an actual judicial warrant, and that none of the employees there are authorized to allow the officers in. A lot of small businesses here are doing this, and it's very successful, actually. The collaborators have been the large businesses. I just want to take a moment to remind everybody out there that large corporations are not your friends. They are on the side of whoever is in power in Washington. So, the people you need to depend on are your small businesses, and small businesses, you need to stand up for your community because that is who gives you your business. The thing you really need to do if you get caught in a situation where ICE shows up is that you need your whistle, you need to make noise, you need to draw attention to the situation, you need to stay in public areas, in full public view of everybody else who's there. If possible, if ICE has snarled the traffic in the area, please have somebody go and direct traffic away from the area. The last thing you want is a traffic pileup that's only going to make the ICE officers more aggressive and nervous and more likely to commit violence. If they approach you, back away slowly. Do not physically engage them. Film everything. Film it from multiple angles. Don't assume that somebody else is going to catch the footage for you. Oh, and also, this is a key thing. If you are going to go out and observe or commute or protest, your phone, I know everybody has their phone, and it's so much easier to access your phone if you turn your biometric ID on. However, if you get arrested or detained, a cop is able to take your phone, hold up your face, and use your facial ID to unlock that phone. They are actually legally able to forcibly put your thumb on that phone to use your thumbprint to open it up. If you're going to go out, you're going to be around them, make sure your phone is locked with a PIN number, the longest one that you are able to get with your particular phone. I know that seems like a very short list of tactics compared to the sheer amount of stuff that they are willing to do. And I know there's going to be lots of young folks who really feel like they want to get out there and fight. You know, you're going to want to build some body armor, or you're going to want to, find one of those punk zines that teaches you how to make a shield out of a rain barrel, like all of this stuff. I love your enthusiasm, but that actually has not proven to help anything. What has proven to help are all of those very peaceful tactics that we've talked about so far. And the most effective thing, the very most effective thing is, and this is for the white people in the room, white people, you have to be the ones who are at the front lines. You have to be the ones putting your bodies between these ICE officers and the people that they want to illegally harass and arrest and deport. You have to be the ones showing up. Communities of color have been dealing with this kind of activity from regular police officers for generations. I know lots of white people are being outraged right now because this is the first time that many of them have woken up and realized that it can happen to them too. It's your turn to get out there and put your bodies on the line and put yourselves on the line for this. Be at the forefront when it comes to all of these interactions with ICE, and let the people who you're trying to help protect define for themselves how they want to speak about the situation. Don't ever speak on their behalf. The thing I want to reiterate the most is these officers were not sent to Minneapolis just to arrest people. Although they really want to do that, they have their 3,000 deportation a day quota handed down to them by Stephen Miller that they are in no way meeting, and they are very desperate to get it. The big reason they were sent here was to punish us as a city for not supporting this current administration. The big reason they were sent here is to try to get us to fight them, to react violently. They want to provoke a violent situation so that they have the excuse to escalate further. I'm of the opinion that this administration really intended to escalate things to the point where they could enact the Insurrection Act and put troops on the streets, before the upcoming midterm elections. By staying peaceful, by clearly demonstrating to the world that they are the aggressors, that they have the weapons, and that we are walking out into the world unarmed, we have taken that ability away from them. They do not have the ability, no matter how much they lie, to spin this and say that we are the ones that are causing the violence. Your job is to document everything they are doing, because someday there are going to be trials, and we are going to have all the evidence. Your other job is to demoralize them. Show them at every step that they are not welcome here and that what they are doing is wrong. All reports indicate that that's working very well. Morale is through the floor inside ICE itself. A lot of these guys who signed up with the high hopes of getting the $50,000 bonus are now finding out that they were also lied to about how it was going to work, and that they are going to go back to lives where people find out that they worked for ICE and are going to shun them. It's working, what's going on here in Minneapolis. It's a good model. You may not have to copy it exactly in your city. You need to tailor it to your local community. But that's the thing I want to get at. Your greatest weapon is your community. The most effective networks that have been created here in Minneapolis have been created by neighbors, by people getting to know the people that they just live next to, the people in their own city. All of the organizing that's been going on has been organic. It has been person to person. It has been peer to peer. Nothing has been handed down through a hierarchy to make this happen. And I know that's very difficult for people to understand, because the general assumption is that there's a massive response to something like this. Well, it must be coordinated. It must be paid for. Everything that everyone has seen here is that it's average, everyday people coming together to make stuff happen. I just, before filming this, came from an event that a friend of mine threw together on her own, and I helped, helped run and operate, where we were just getting random people that we know together to phone bank and write letters to our elected officials to tell them exactly what we want to happen. But also to come together in community and show that we are together, that we are working as one, that we have the ability to care about people that we're not even related to. Social media has atomized society, has separated so many people from even the people who live right next door to them. To regain our freedom, to regain our nation, we actually just have to get out and do the everyday thing of being neighbors, of being a community. It's that neighborliness that will save us. So go out there, do the work, be kind to each other, lift each other up, be neighbors, and we'll win.